So I know I'm taking a lot of time. I don't want to steal from JJ. I love this guy right here. He is just an incredible, passionate young man, and I'm very proud of you. In fact, you were just in Poland not too long ago with this crisis going on. I'm going to let him tell you more about what's happening. But would you welcome JJ and Nelia Farrell?
Well, it is an honor to be here. And we've been supported by this church for a long time, and we've never actually made it out. I don't know if you understand normally how this works. The missionary first will come, and then you'll have some board meeting or something 6 months later, and then they'll tell you about a year later whether they're going to support you or not. We're kind of got the cart ahead of the horse here, and 17 years later, here we are. So thank you very much, church. Thank you for supporting our ministry. Now, Pastor Nate, I know you really beat the nail a lot with the Katinas, but man, if you don't know who the Katinas are, when I saw that graphic with you're going to have the Katinas here. If you don't know who the Katinas are, you're going to make a mistake by not inviting your friends. They're really they're an awesome group. So my name is JJ Farrell, and my wife is in the back there, and I know that nobody here really knows us except for Pastor Nate. I would be shocked if there'd be anybody else here who knows of us. And there was one young lady who said that I continually pray for you. I mean, there's probably some others. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to start from the beginning. Introduce you to my family. We have that first slide. Just introduce you to my family. So, not that slide. That was the very first slide. So we are, of course, my wife is in the back. She's the one waving her hand back there. And we have been, we've been married for almost 22 years now. We also have two children. And when they get the graphic up, it'll work out. We have an 18-year-old son. He is in his first year of college, which means that when we go back on the mission field, there he is, the black shirt. When we go back on the mission field, he's going to stay. I know lots of families go through this, but when we go back on the mission field, he's gonna stay for college, and we'll be on the other side of the world, which will be kind of I'm not sure who that's going to be harder on, us or him. Or everybody, or the sister, who is 15 going on 25, keeping my eye on her even in the picture there. And my wife, I already introduced you to her, and I'm the ugly one in the gray shirt. And we are the Farrell family, serving the Lord in Romania for a number of years, changing fields. But I want to tell you why it is we do what we do. We do youth ministry. The biggest piece of what we do is youth ministry, and we do compassion ministry as well. But I want to tell you, a little bit about myself and, why do we do this? I am the product of youth ministry. I am that kid that walked in the back of the church. I was far away from the Lord. I didn't come from a Christian home. My upbringing was, I grew up in an alcoholic home. If any of you know what an alcoholic home is, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of breaking things. The earliest childhood memory I have, I think I was 3 years old, and I was sitting on the floor watching cartoons, and I saw my dad break down the door to get to my mom. And a lot of days just like that. When I was 11 years old, my dad died as a result of all of his drinking, which, it caught up to him and it chipped him away. I grew up in Southern California. We've got a lot of gangs there. There's gangs everywhere. I was 12 years old. I got jumped into this. I got jumped into a gang. Thought it was going to be one thing, and it turned out to be another thing. And I got to a place where I felt like I was swallowed by this world that wasn't going to let me go. Volunteered myself into it and was very hard to get away from it. I remember as a teenage boy, I was, 13 years old, 14 years old, waking up, and the first thought I'd have was, man, another day. And kids aren't supposed to think those things. And I remember it got to a place where, long story short, I had a bad night, and I got home, and I remember I was looking at myself in the mirror and just, afraid and ashamed of everything that was going on around me. I remember I just kind of looked at myself in the mirror and said, "JJ, you're going to die from all of this." And I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where everything just kind of starts to make sense to you. That was the moment where I realized that all that stuff that I saw that was happening to everybody else, it was only a matter of time. And I said a few words. I said a few words at that moment, and I don't think I wasn't trying to pray. I just said, "Lord, help me." Just kind of seemed like the right thing for my soul to cry out at that moment. But the Lord has very big ears, and he hears absolutely everything. And a few days later, I didn't know anybody. I didn't think that I knew anybody at that point that was going to church. I didn't have any real connection to church. Somebody invited me to go to a youth group. One of my friends was going to this youth group thing, and I had no idea what it was. But he invited me to go, and I honestly didn't even really know it was church until we showed up in the church parking lot. Walked into the back of this youth room. It was, not much bigger than this room, and strangely enough, you could pack 250 teenagers in that place. Stood in the back of this youth room, knife in my pocket, in my shoe, looking into this room of people and wondering, man, I don't know if I can do this. Standing there, I knew what it was going to mean if I was going to walk into this church thing. Things were going to happen in my life. And I knew I needed to change, but up till that point, I had never even considered that God was there or that he could help me out. But I knew that as the worship was going by, and I'd never experienced worship before, but man, there was something about the presence of the Lord. There's something, I had never entered into worship myself, but I knew what the presence of the Lord felt like. Standing there for about 10 minutes in the back of this room, I got to that point where I realized the Lord was just throwing me a lifeline. And I'd be a fool if I don't take it. So I looked up at the Lord, walking down to go find my friend. I said probably the most dangerous words that anybody could ever say. I said, "Lord, take this life of mine and do anything you want to do with me. Just make life worth living, please." Now, I say those are dangerous words because I have been a missionary for 25 years. But if you mean it, the Lord will take your existence on this earth, and he'll align you with the very purpose that he created you for. And you will live the very most fulfilled life that you could possibly live, because he will align you with the very reason why he made you in the first place. Not long after I got saved, I knew that I was made to be a youth pastor. There was nothing else that made more sense than that, because I knew that there were kids out there that would say yes to the gospel of Jesus Christ if someone would just present the gospel to them. It took a local church. It took a youth ministry in a local church for a normal kid. Man, I was just as normal as anybody else that I was hanging around with. It took that local youth ministry for me to find Jesus. Without that local youth ministry, even today, I don't think I would have found the Lord. And not long after I gave in and told the Lord that I will serve him in youth ministry, he kind of threw that curveball in. And I found out that what we have here in the United States, they don't have everywhere in the world. Talking about youth ministry. There are places out there where it's not normal for the churches to have youth ministries. You find many, many countries, and all over Europe, I can speak very, very clearly because I know, though there are many places where it's it's less common to find a church that has youth ministry than it is to find churches that do have youth ministries. The majority don't have youth ministries. So, long story short, we have what I think to be a unique ministry of helping to establish youth ministries in places where youth ministry doesn't exist. You know, as long as I've been in Romania, we've been working in compassion ministry, and we've been youth pastoring in local churches. We've youth pastors in 2 different places. We started the youth ministry in both of those places, but beyond that, we also help other churches to start their youth ministries. I'm a youth evangelist. Go all over the place, preaching the gospel, altar calls, young people getting saved. We teach in Bible schools on the subject of youth ministry, because the reality is you're not going to find very many countries in Europe where they actually teach on youth ministry. We did a survey once upon a time, a wide survey in all of the Pentecostal world in Europe. There were 5 nations in Europe that were teaching on youth ministry at that time. And I tell you, the numbers haven't grown much. If it's been a nation or 2, there is something significant. Somebody has to put their foot in to change something. And if someone doesn't do it, then it's going to take a generation or 2 before. And the same reality is there. How will the young people ever walk into the back of the church and find Jesus Christ if someone's not presenting the gospel to them? The chances are they won't. Now, the Lord pulled out a key about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and everything that we've been doing in Romania, the Lord opened all of Europe to us. Now, let me tell you something. I don't think that I'm somebody. I don't think that I'm, good enough or qualified enough or anything. If anything, I think that we're grossly underqualified for all the things that we're doing. I think that maybe there was someone smarter than me that said no to the Lord, and God just said, okay, just send in JJ, he'll do it. We work with entire denominations, especially in the Pentecostal circles, but we work with entire denominations to help them figure out what does it mean to have a vision for youth ministry, and how do you roll that out nationwide. We work with entire denominations in helping them in training their youth leaders and potential youth leaders, the future of youth ministry. I work with the networks of national youth directors in all these different Pentecostal circles, and there's a lot of things we do. There's boring things, there's exciting things that we do, but probably the best way the way I like to describe what we're doing is kind of rolling out the map of Europe and putting your fingers on the pulse of what the Holy Spirit is saying and trying to find where are the dark spots. Where are the places where you don't hear about youth ministry happening, or the places you just know it's not very strong, or we have maybe access into their Bible schools, and we just start pushing those buttons to try and to get youth ministry to happen in those places. Now, a lot of the places that we go, the next slide, please. It's really polished. It's the green one. You're maybe preaching to 1,000 people, a couple thousand people, and you've got, the big screens. It was the one with the donkey. If it catches up, it catches up. You're preaching to, a couple thousand teenagers sometimes, but a lot of the times, that's all right. It's not that big of a deal. A lot of the times, it's really grassroots, where you'll go to a local church and you'll help a local church start a local youth ministry. And years will go by, couple years, maybe more, and then you'll get to the point where they will never go back to the days when they weren't doing youth ministry in that local church. And how many of us found the Lord in those very difficult teenage years? So many of us. If none of you, then this backfired. Those teenage years are difficult. And I'll tell you, right now, it is more difficult than ever for young people to just navigate life. It is very, very hard. All the mental health stuff and all. There is a bag of baggage that teenagers have to walk around with in this generation that we never experienced. It is more difficult than ever before. They are hurting, they're searching, and they need the Lord. But how will they ever find Jesus Christ if the churches are not presenting it to them? We have to be there, and we have to make sure that they're doing it. Now, another really big piece of what we do, there it is. That's where it looks very polished. You show donkeys to kids. That's actually a very powerful message. But the next one, show you what Grassroots looks like. Just going to just a little church. I work a lot with gypsy churches. And these gypsy churches, man, you go to them and they have nothing. It is just, they are some of the poorest people that you're going to find. They are, if you know anything about gypsy culture, in Europe, it doesn't matter what country you go to, they don't like them. They are the most hated people continent-wide, But it is where you find the true, I've never experienced revival until I've started hanging around with these gypsy people. In these churches, let me explain to you what revival means. They'll plant churches like crazy. They never seem to finish the churches because they kind of outgrow them. And then they chop off, when they plant a church, they start building a church, they know they need to have all kinds of property around them because they're going to cut off a wall and start extending. They never finish the outsides of the churches because they just grow and grow and grow. Amazing things happening in these gypsy churches. We helped many of them start their youth ministries. But we also, working with the gypsy culture, we also do a lot of compassion ministry. They're not just the most hated people. They're also the culture where the help doesn't get there. They live out in their own villages. A lot of their villages they're just gypsy villages. You'll leave the major city, and then you get out and gravel and dirt and mud, and you're driving out, and you're standing in this second world city, and you're looking at the big metropolitan city that's 10 miles away from. They can see it from there, but they don't experience where they live. Shanties and homes where a lot of times it just doesn't stand up to the conditions, and most of Europe, a lot of Europe is just very, very cold. We like to help out. This makes a lot of sense, especially in these days. We have to be the hands and feet extended to Jesus Christ. The Lord has given the American church an incredible blessing, and there are people out there that are just hurting. And we find that, especially in these cultures, can you show the next slide, please? In these cultures, they are living in conditions that just don't make sense for 2022. We like to help out a lot around the holidays, especially in other times. We like to do what we call strategic help. My wife and I, she's really cute. Well, we used to walk the streets in Bucharest and hand out sandwiches to homeless children, which is a beautiful thing. No one get upset with me. But one thing as you're handing out these sandwiches, you're feeding people that are hungry. It's a fabulous thing to do, and we still do it. Okay, but when you're handing out a sandwich, a lot of times you hear about a real need, a need that sandwich is not gonna scratch, So we like to do what we call strategic help. So when we're going out and we're helping out around the holidays and, giving the families something to put under that tree on Christmas morning, you hear about the real needs. As we were there helping out with this family where they obviously have some medical conditions. Now I was told that this that little boy right there that's in the wheelchair, if he gets a simple corrective surgery by the time he's 12 or 13 years old, he'll be able to walk for the rest of his life, likely. Okay? But he lives in a culture where the help doesn't get that far. So we're there and we're, helping out with the Christmas gifts and finding out about other needs. My wife and I believe one of our kids went inside of that little house right there. And the dad was giving us just probably the only thing that he had to say thank you, for the little bit of help that we were giving them. And he was giving us a cup of coffee, And as he was opening up the refrigerator door, my wife said that he had to, she saw him having to hold his foot against the door so that it wouldn't fall off the hinges. I don't know how many of you have ever had to do that. I never had, and he has big enough problems to worry about, So what is strategic help? We get home, and my buddy that took us there, for a couple $100, we gave my friend Yonutz a couple $100, and he went there and he bought him a refrigerator. That's what strategic help is. Fixing a problem so that today his fridge still works. Church, if you've ever wondered where your missions dollars are going, I know it's a sacrifice. This is what we're doing. This is what you're doing. Thank you very much for supporting our ministry. We've coming back during COVID. This has been an uphill battle, and we're not done. We're supposed to be leaving in a couple of months. It has been very, very hard. Thank you very much for supporting our ministry in these very difficult times, Pastor, church. You guys, thank you so much for all that you're doing. Yeah, we were just in. I was just in Poland, which seems like so long ago, but it really was not that long ago. We got invited, I think on a Tuesday, driving down the road. We were going in Southern California, which is where I'm from. We were driving. My wife and I were going to our district office, and got a phone call from our pastor asking us, if we knew anything about anybody that was doing anything in Poland or in Romania, some sort of help. If we knew anybody, told him a couple things. We get a call the next day, I think. This was on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I was flying over ahead of the rest of the team. It was just a small collection of people who were just going to go to Poland and kind of feel things out and see what people were doing. They sent me a couple days ahead of everybody else, just kind of line a couple other things. I knew when you're watching the news, you're watching all of this chaos of people pouring over the borders. You knew that people were going to be in dire straits. You see on CNN and Fox News, whatever you like to watch, you see the disaster that's unfolding. I knew that it was going to be. There was nothing like standing there and watching these mothers with 2 or 3 kids crossing over the border, and you just see them coming by the droves, and these sweet little kids that are following behind them. It is one thing to watch it on TV, and we all know this, but it is another thing to smell it and to see with your own eyes. And what impressed me is, so we went to all of these different processing stations, or I don't know what they're calling it on the news. The places where when they come off of the border, they go to a place, and then they're kind of taken from there to another place. All those different train stations and things that you've seen on TV. Man, I walked through them, and I saw it all happen. The coolest thing that I saw, the church is responding at a level that I have not heard anybody describe. It is phenomenal. There is no response like what the Christian church can do. I tell you, those you're watching people cross over the border, and you see just you see disaster in their eyes. But I think every Christian person that is walking across that border, they probably already know where they're going to go, because they have found out before they got to the other side of the border who to meet up with. The instructions are there on their phone when they cross over the border, where they're supposed to walk to, because you can't just sit there with a bus, so they'll get filled up with other people. The Christian people are being taken care of by Christian people. The Ukrainian church is very much in contact with the Polish church, and they are organizing, from right off of the border. They're taking them to a processing station, which is really just, it's like a church like this, where you would walk in and you see shelves that have been just put together in 2 days, and they're filled with rice and beans and different things that people can take and go and prepare as they go down the road. And going into these places, it was heartbreaking to see that about every 5 minutes, you see another small family walk in. Every 5 minutes, imagine this. Every 5 minutes, you see another family walk in. And the kids are, they're worn out. Everybody's worn out. They're stressed out. They were brought there by our Christian brothers and sisters, allowed to wash their clothes, get a meal to eat. The kids are given a toy or two, because they left home without anything. They're given a couple of toys, something to just kind of get a little smile on their face. And then in walks another person, Christian brothers and sisters, that is going to take them from that point A to whatever point B is. And a lot of times it's all the way on the other side of the country. God bless the Christian church. Can you imagine being in that situation, and you have no one to rely on? You're walking into a country that you don't know. It's like going into Mexico, and you don't know anybody. But you're greeted by Mexican brothers and sisters that are willing to take you anywhere you need to go, give you a few bucks in your pocket too, to hand you off to other people that love you because you love the Lord. But I tell you, in all of this, we are at the tip of that dirty iceberg. This is a problem that is only going to show its face more and more and more. I'll tell you, the reason why I was asked to go and I dare say assist, to be a part of this group, is because I have spent a lot of time working with the church leadership in the Pentecostal circles in Europe, and I know the different national leaders that were going to be involved in this. We will be involved more and more as the days unfold with whatever this refugee crisis is going to mean. We'll be involved more on the other side of this. Church, thank you very much for supporting our ministry. And for me to say that we need your help, I don't say this in a selfish way at all. We desperately need your support more than ever before. More than ever before. Because the opportunities that are unfolding and the needs that are unfolding are greater than ever before. Pastor Nate, when should I shut my mouth? Till what time do I have is a nicer way to say. It's fine. Okay. Let me tell you, my favorite Bible verse in that whole book, my favorite verse, my youth pastor sat down with me and was just trying to, Steve Thomas, sat down with me, was just trying to mentor me. And why do we do this? Why do we try and reach that next generation? And he read a verse to me. 2 Timothy 2:2. And it is there somewhere. You don't have to find it. It's fine. It says, "And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others." Now, when I took a class, and this Bible professor, he said, you'll never be able to stand solid on any scripture that you ever plan on teaching or preaching on if you don't understand what the context is. So let me explain to you what the context is of this Bible verse. This is the Apostle Paul talking, and he was talking to Timothy, his most beloved disciple, and he was in prison. Okay, but for the Apostle Paul to be in prison, that was nothing new. He'd been in prison many, many, many times. We can't even figure out how many times he'd been in prison by reading the scriptures, because it doesn't all make sense, which means that there is far more there than what we can figure out. But he was an intelligent man, and he realized that this imprisonment wasn't like the other just beat you up imprisonments and let you go. This looked more like an execution trial. And so he got to the point where he is realizing, okay, this could be game over for me. And evaluating all that he had gone through, evaluating the scars probably on his body, and realizing, man, I've done all I can do. And so he's writing Timothy, and he's telling Timothy, in just this one stroke of a pen, he mentions 4 generations. Hey, the things that you have heard me say, Timothy, in the presence of many witnesses, and trust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. 4 generations in that one stroke of the pen. In other words, he's telling Timothy, never let it stop. Timothy, take this gospel. You find another hill where it's not being preached on, and you plant that flag there. And you tell those people to hand it off to the next generation. Because he understood something. It's the thing that we have to understand. That in the kingdom of God, the generations are of the utmost importance. Because we are one generation for this thing being extinct. It only takes one generation. Imagine that. Everything that we have sacrificed for, all that we have contributed towards, everything that we've been working for, man, the planning of this wonderful church, it can go away in the next generation if we don't hand it off the way that we need to. There are places out there where the gospel is not being preached. There's another generation that needs to be reached. I'll tell you something. Let me tell you something really quickly about Europe. A lot of people sometimes will ask, why don't you go to Africa? Why don't you go to Latin America? Why don't you go to these places? Go in the jungle. Or everybody should go everywhere. I believe it. Reach lost people. Once upon a time, the hotbed of Christianity, the birthplace of Christianity, there's a place today we call the Middle East. We lost our foothold there. Europe, they say within the next 13 years, in the next 13 years, Islam will be the prominent religion in Europe. From one end to the next. We cannot lose our foothold in Europe as well. This is our turn. Everything that we've been building up for, everything we've been sacrificing for, it can all go away in our generation. We have to become experts in handing off the gospel. I'll tell you something. One thing I know about the young people in Europe, one thing I know about Europe is this. A lot of the places, very postmodern, they don't want to hear about your Jesus. The adults don't want to hear about your Jesus. But teenagers are still very, very much open to the gospel. Very much open to the gospel. The iron is still hot. Now's the time. Church, thank you very much for supporting our ministry. Please stand behind us and send us off quick. We're supposed to go at the end of May. We're not on the other side of that hill, but we've got to get there. Thank you very much, Pastor, for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, JJ and Nelia, for being here today. We had a team from Frontline to go to Romania. We were partnering with One Hope. Andrea is not here today, but she's a part of that incredible ministry. The brilliance of One Hope is this. They take the Bible, the New Testament, actually Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they take that book. You get the entire book, but depending on the age level of whoever you may be giving this book to, if it's elementary, they put cartoons and puzzles and all kinds of, make it an interactive book. And we had a team. Jill was with us, Jonathan Goundry, and several others from Frontline at the time were with us, and we were with One Hope, and we were at an elementary school. My brother, Tom, was with us, and he got their attention when this one particular class was an elementary class, and he went, "Aye!" and got everybody's attention. He was saying, well, he was living in New Orleans, and so that got everyone's attention. But the teacher told us before we passed out this book that none of these kids had ever had a Bible. This is elementary. Had never had a Bible. And so she was explaining how important this book was as we began to pass out to each one of these elementary kids. It's a thin book. It's just the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but it had all kinds of puzzles and fun things. And they were cherishing this little book. And I remember passing, and most of you would hand the book, and they would just start fanning through it and looking at all the things and smiling and pointing to this and that. But I remember handing one little girl, blonde-haired and blue eyes, and I handed her this little book in Romania. And she did just like the others. She opened the book, looked at it for a second, and then she looked up and stared at me. I don't know what it was about that moment. It just broke my heart. She was, in her mind, taking a photograph of me. I was an instrument in God's hands to give her her first Bible. This is why we support missions. This is why we reach out and we take missions trips, or we have missionaries come, because there's a world out there that's hurting, that's crying, that needs help. Just recently, I got a text from someone who was crying out, I need help. I need help now. If I don't get help now, I might die. And it just was a reflection of so many people outside these walls. That's why we support youth ministry right now and children's ministry, because there's so many hurting people in this world. Listen, if you don't believe it, you're blind. Your neighbor, your friend, people you work with, family members, people that may live in your very own home are hurting. And they need to experience God's love in a big way. Amen? And JJ, I'm so grateful that you're here to remind us how important it is that we be God's hands extended to reach the lost. And I'm going to tell you, Europe is a tragedy. In fact, I had someone recently say, well, Pastor, we should really be focusing on Central America and some of these other countries because Europe is past hope. And I almost agreed. All the empty churches in Europe, listen, with Christ, there's always hope. And we need to be sponsoring people like JJ and many others We just had Troy and Heidi Darren in Moldova that are taking the gospel to places that they have never heard before. And today we have an opportunity to partner with them and make a difference. Amen. Amen. I'm going to